Welcome to Maundy Thursday. This is the first of the 3 days making up the Great Triduum, the liturgical reenactment of the events leading up to Easter. Tonight commemorates the Last Supper, the Jewish Passover Seder Jesus and his followers shared. The Last Supper becomes the first Eucharist when Jesus instructs his friends to eat bread and drink wine in remembrance of him, telling them that the bread is his body and the wine is his blood. He also offers an example of the service he expects from them. He takes off his robe, wraps himself in the towel of a servant, and washes his friends' feet. And finally, he gives them a new commandment: love one another as I have loved you. That's a lot to do in one evening. You can practically feel Jesus, acutely aware of how little time he has left, desperately trying to impart his final lessons. Let me feed you, serve the world, love each other. The Maundy in Maundy Thursday is derived from the Latin word mandatum, an order or command. It's where we get our English word mandate. Jesus is giving his disciples their final marching orders. But there's another command here, one overlooked by many of the commentaries I've read. Jesus washes his friends' feet to show them how to serve, but also to show them how to be served. Unless I wash you, you have no share in me, he tells Peter, who is horrified by the idea. Foot washing was the servant's job, the service slaves offered when guests, weary and travel-worn, their feet probably neither clean nor sweet-smelling, arrived at the house. Peter is scandalized that his Lord would lower himself this way, and he may also be shy about letting Jesus near the blisters, bunions, toe cheese, and road dust that inevitably collect on feet that have just walked miles in sandals. I think Peter's discomfort stems from two opposite impulses. First, he doesn't want to look like he's setting himself above his Lord. Secondly, he doesn't want to expose his coarse, ugly, ordinary feet to the Son of God. The first impulse looks like humility. The second looks like pride. I believe that both have their root in shame, in a statement that might sound something like, I'm not good enough for Jesus to wash my feet. As many of you know, I've spent many years working as a hospital chaplain, first as a volunteer at St. Mary's, and now as professional staff at Renown. I've heard patients apologize for crying when they were in pain. I've heard them apologize for being smelly. I've heard them apologize for bleeding, as if anyone in the hospital is going to scold them for besmirching our lovely sheets. Being ill forces us to come to terms with our bodies, with the physicality of them, the fact that they sweat and excrete and sometimes produce noxious fumes. All of these are things that most of us spend a lot of time and money in the non-hospital world trying to sanitize and disguise. Being in a hospital can bring us face to face with our attitudes about incarnation, purity, and cleanliness. There's another related statement I've heard from too many patients: I don't want to be a burden. Having doctors and nurses take care of them is unpleasant, but okay, because the medical staff are professionals. They're being paid. But receiving physical care as a gift from friends and family can feel shameful. I've heard a lot of people, usually men, say that they would literally rather die than have a loved one help them with eating or dressing or toileting. They don't want the people who care about them to have to do that work. And yet, oddly, many of these patients have spent their lives caring for others, sometimes even in the medical field, and often as family caregivers. When you helped other people, I ask them, did you feel that was a terrible burden? No, they tell me, it was an honor. Then wouldn't your loved ones find it an honor to care for you? I've rarely met a patient who could make that leap. And of course, it's true that caregiving is exhausting, backbreaking, often lonely work, no matter how much we love the recipients of our care. But whenever I have a conversation like this with a patient, I flash on Peter, vehemently telling Jesus, "You will never wash my feet. Unless I wash you, you have no share in me." Maybe Peter remembered Jesus saying, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." Maybe he thought Jesus was testing him. If we're meant to model our lives on Jesus, doesn't that mean we don't let others serve us? But Jesus isn't talking about being served as if we're royalty by people whose very service renders them lower in social standing than we are. He's talking about being served in our need when we're exhausted and weeping and filthy. He's saying that unless we're willing to let others touch our dirty feet and our bleeding wounds, we haven't heard his message. Romans tells us that nothing can separate us from the love of God, but Jesus, tonight, tells us that shame and pride can. Maundy Thursday is profoundly about incarnation, about embodiment. This is my body, this is my blood. The Eucharist is physical, and being a Christian means following Jesus to the cross, where he will be broken and bloodied. The Christian story begins with birth, which is always holy but never tidy, and it continues through a series of healings where Jesus touches lepers and bleeding women and all manner of people considered outcast and unclean. Jesus' story has taken us now to the final evening of his life. Tomorrow, on Good Friday, he will die. There will be a body hanging on a cross and put in a tomb, and 3 days later, impossibly, there will no longer be a body, and then the body will return, breaking bread and cooking fish, and inviting skeptics to touch the holy, wounded, bleeding places. Unless I wash you, you have no share in me. Until we come to terms with our own incarnation, our own embodiment, our own blood and sweat and tears and toe cheese, our own need to be touched and washed and healed, we cannot live fully into the Christian mystery or its promise. We must let Jesus care for us. We must let him heal our shame and pride by touching us. And because we have promised to seek Christ in all people, we must let others care for us as well. This year, all of this is enormously complicated by the pandemic, which has made most of us acutely aware of the need for physical touch. None of the COVID patients my colleagues and I have visited this year, separated from their friends and families, have apologized for needing help or for being sick. Those who were strong enough have clung to our gloved hands. Those who could speak, who could spare that much breath, have wept as they thanked us for visiting, for being willing to be in the same room with them. We're all feeling that hunger right now, even if we've never been in a COVID isolation room. I suspect that after months of quarantine, even Peter would rush to have his feet washed. St. Paul's first in-person service for many months, small, reservation only, outside, and socially distanced, will be on Easter morning. Right now, we're all still on our Zoom screens. That's appropriate. It's our way of keeping ourselves and each other safe. But it means that we can't have our feet washed by our clergy or fellow parishioners, or wash their feet. What I ask then is that you honor Jesus' wishes by accepting care from someone in your household. Let someone you love wash your feet tonight. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to feel the holiness of another person handling that part of your body to soothe and bathe it. Let this be practice for receiving care in the future. Almost all of us will need that because all of us are only temporarily able-bodied. And if you live alone, wash your own feet. Pay attention to the corns and calluses, bunions and bumps, the blisters and sore spots. Practice loving this part of yourself so often hidden in socks and sensible shoes. Know that your feet, too, are holy. Our Creator designed our feet to carry us over sacred ground through the wonders of creation until at last we reach the cross and the tomb, and the glory we have been promised lies beyond them. Amen.